thank you everybody who's been here to support and help with this installation. And thank you for having me and work and being here tonight. This group of these 4 pieces are part of an original larger installation that was at the New York City Opera in Lincoln Center, which was sort of the less conventional of the opera companies in New York. And they had a new director at the time, which was 1905. It's 2009. So you're going to see, I'm actually going to read to you something that is basically a statement about the project, because there's so many aspects of it that I find interesting, and this is a nice condensed way that I can make sure I sort of cover a lot of the aspects of this project, because it was very large. Being part of opera, it had a lot of complexities and drama and a lot of things. It was a really, really important project for me on many levels. And one was learning about opera. I mean, honestly, I heard of Madama Butterfly and the Web, and I was invited by the opera to do something with their enormous costume archive that they were looking to deaccession. They had the largest, I don't know how many costumes, but they needed to deaccession it in the warehouse, and they invited me to do something in their promenade space. They were into Lincoln Center. It's like 40 feet high, this enormous, wonderful space. There's some pictures of that installation you can see, and there's a couple of books out front that are just about these pieces and that exhibition, so that you get like a sense of the context. So if you can imagine, there were 14, 17 of these scale pieces, but they were all up at 3 different levels. So they were like 40 feet high and came down to 20 feet high and so forth. And there was a catwalk on 4 levels, so you kind of see them, and it was a very celestial kind of installation. And having it here at this height is so wonderful, because you can really get up close and see these costumes. That's a lot of my motivation with it, was just the access to see these costumes that had, been built to be on a stage, that their kind of marker for the way it had to look is something that would be 30 feet away. So if you couldn't see a button from 30 feet away, they had to make it bigger. Sort of everything is scaled for this huge perspective. So I'm going to ramble, so I'm going to read this, and then I really urge you to ask me any questions, and Lawrence as well. Lawrence and I started working together actually on this project, and together ever since. So I'm sorry if this is sort of a little bit formal, but it only is 3.5 minutes. Okay. I make sculptures that transform familiar icons of women's empowerment and entrapment into new objects that confound conventional readings of these cliches and constellate meaning in a range of emotions, such as anxiety, ecstasy, liberation, and release. When New York City Opera asked me if I'd be interested in making art using costumes from their archives, I was thrilled, because the recurring themes in my work, explosion, velocity, spectacle, have an energy that might be termed operatic. In my art, I use tension to suspend, stretch, and shred garments, and to create forms that I liken futurist abstract paintings in 3 dimensions. Their abstraction is melodramatic, powerful, and lyrical, suggesting continued motion. My intention is not to create a moment of violence, but to transform rigid symbols, thereby reinterpreting the social constructs of my cultural surroundings. Sort of a mouthful. The challenge with this installation was to do justice to the retired costumes, which still have a majesty and a degree of craftsmanship unlike I'd ever encountered. I wanted the sculptures to reflect and refract the specific roles the costumes had played. What helped me in imagining new forms for these costumes was all the evidence of life that I found inside of them. Multiple alterations, perspiration stains, dirt from dragging frilly petticoats across the stage for countless performances, makeup smudged around the collars, and layers of tags sewn inside showing their provenance. It characters and productions, the stages they played. I wanted to reanimate those lives and give them a future form in the promenade, which was that other space. And anyway, I worked with a team of volunteer assistants for 2 months in New York City Opera's costume archive. From hundreds of costumes, I selected those that spoke loudest to me about how to approach them, how to connect with their history, and the story they seemed built to tell. Using monofilament and fishing tackle, principal materials of my process, we first began working on them on Carmen's dress, which is the one back there with the big pinata. Carmen, the main soprano of the opera, of that name. And when I was lifting points, what I usually do when I start a piece like this is I hang it up from a couple of points, and then I start to sort of marionette it in a way, figure out what's happening with the shape of the dress, the costume, way it's being built, and then how it moves, and what kind of gestures are inside of it. And so, let's see, lifting some points and letting the others drape to form a tensile ripple. So, what I mean is that the way that the fabric moves, then it's also under tension to keep it in that frozen moment, but hopefully it also looks like it's flowing, but it's under the tension of the two lines above and below it. It's all fishing tackle. And from the moment I saw that motion, with the gold-toed petticoats flickering like candlelight through the black polka-dotted lace, I realized that each sculpture would have its own narrative, and the slightest alteration of strings and gestures could reimagine the story. While in the warehouse working, we listened to Maria Callas, La Habanera, Diamanda Galas, and Wendy Williams. And our work with the garments became performative and improvisatory. With Carmen, I let her wield the bloody knife, leaving its meaning ambiguous. The interplay between the story of the opera from which each costume came, the moment created by the sculpture, the physicality of the transformed garment, its materials, its shapes, its colors, floating in the celestial space, is the work that I hope viewers of my installation will appreciate. Okay, so touching on something. So around the room, this is Mimi from La Boheme, and the next is Manon, from also an opera called Manon, and we have Carmen, and this one is Cinderella, the two-sided Cinderella, gown Cinderella and the cinder Cinderella. And what I love this piece kind of for so many reasons, but one was sort of learning the language of how opera works behind the scenes. And as we were going through the archive of costumes, sort of, who would wear this bloody nightgown, and it's Lucia, of course. Like, I have no idea what that is, but this was on, they're all labeled sort of general costumes and brides and etc. And this one is on a rack that was called Distressed Peasant. It was like a whole rack of distressed peasant, and I was like, who would be a distressed peasant? What is that? And the wardrobe directors were with us, watching our every move, and also informing us. And said, well, that would be Cinderella, most likely. So that's where I found that dress. And what I love about that dress too is that it's distressed, but all the fabrics that were used to build it are quite extravagant. The fabric of burlap is actually like merino wool, and the bodice is silk velvet that has a brocade lining on the inside, and the scarf around her waist that looks like a dish towel is actually silk, and the sleeves are linen with hand crochet. There's areas where you use shoe polish and Sharpies to sort of then distress it, and it's just the irony of it, I think, is so amazing, and also something about the history of opera, which was in that it's sort of the Olympics of the art forms, and so sort of it's the biggest, the loudest voices, the biggest stories, and so I just feel like that's so indicative of it doesn't matter particular, if you know the story of La Boheme, which I didn't before really, I started this project, but now I'm fascinated by the stories. Mimi, she dies of tuberculosis in frozen snow and based in the arms of her lover, but she's just like, she dies frozen essentially. So this is called Mimi rigor mortis. So that's sort of the title. And what happened when when I would pull this dress up, it has a very defined shape, and the fabrics are so stiff, and so pulling her up, and her arms just kind of, they would only go like this, they could only even go that far, and I just felt like it was sort of uncanny how she was this kind of froze like an icicle, and her gown was like that too. And the next one, Manon, this was an opera where the main character was a very young woman who was being escorted to a nunnery by her cousin, and meets a guy on the way, and then leaves, does not go to the nunnery, then meets another guy who's got more money, and then she's back with the other guy, and then back with the rich guy who's lost all his money, and then they go to a casino and they lose money, and then she dies. And it's like, so that's a really rough way to tell a story, but the dress is built after understanding the story, is that she's kind of like this really feminine, seductress, but very young, almost like she doesn't know what she's doing. But then it's also gilded, so there's this sort of a tenderness and a sensuality, but then also a kind of gaudy brocade. And so I always thought of the way that the skirt was so enormous, and just lifting it up and making it sort of angelic. And then while I was working on it, I was told that this was the dress that Beverly Sills wore in this opera at New York City Opera. And she was a huge supporter of the opera because she was very famous. And she is also the reason why City Opera had so many costumes, for other reasons, I suppose. I'm digressing. Go ahead. Don't need to know that. And so I just thought of this as the ghost angel and sort of the spirit of Beverly Sills. And Carmen is just like metallic and kind of electric, and her story is she gets murdered, and I always think it's very, very unfair. And she's murdered by an ex-lover who she always told that she was never going to stick around with him, but he gets jealous eventually, and at this certain moment and stabs her in the back. So this is sort of her spiky dress, and of a very independent nature, this woman, and so in here, sort of angled the knife outward, so as though she was reanimated, that she had her hands on the knife, and maybe she would have a different outcome in sort of my storytelling. After listening and reading and being with the costumes, you start to just get very involved with the characters. I mean, it was an incredible experience. So, and there's a lot of other kind of stories about it I could tell. So please ask any questions, and I'll answer them, or you can walk around and look, and if you have any questions.